Hi all, whether you're watching us now or whether you're watching us later. It's always good to have you on board, and this is live with Tony and Avery. I had to think who I was for a moment there, which is a bit sad, but maybe it's an age thing. Who knows? Today we're going to talk about some fabulous outcomes in terms of tariffs that have been imposed to 160 odd countries around the world and imposed on some islands and some bizarre places that one wonders whether the Trump administration have got it all together. And I think the answer is quite clear, is that they haven't. And Avery and I will be talking about that in just a moment. It's a lot of fun talking about penguins and what they are contributing to the economy. It's also going to be an interesting conversation about the Australian election, given that it's a non-starter. And also we're going to have play back a bit of an interview that I did, no I didn't, that ABC did with Peter Dutton, which talks a little bit about tariffs and Peter's version of the way the world should be according to a Dutton. So in the meantime, I'm just going to welcome Avery to the show. Good to see you, mate.
Yeah, how are you, Tony?
Good, good. Was that a reasonable rant? Was that okay?
Yeah, it certainly is. Yeah.
It is okay, that's good. So how are you fired up today? You ready to have this conversation, are you?
I certainly am.
It's
always ready.
Always ready. So
I was born ready.
You certainly were, and you're still born. No, you're born still. No, that's not
born
true.
Still.
Because either way you wouldn't be. You'd be born. It doesn't matter.
I wouldn't be born. Yeah.
So let's talk about these tariffs, because I found it interesting. I did a post about a couple of hours ago, which people might like to access. Incidentally, this is being live fed to Facebook as we speak as well, mate. But it was in relation to tariffs hitting. So let's start by talking about tariffs in general and what they are. And you're a bit of an expert on that, so I look forward to hearing what you have to say. And then also let's talk about the impact on Australia and what we should or should, in your view, what we should or should not do around tariffs. And then we'll talk about the bizarreness, which is about two places in Australia that these tariffs have impacted outside of Australia, even though these two places are part of Australia. So what do you think? What was your first reaction when you heard the tariffs? I guess it wasn't a surprise to start with.
No.
So what do you think?
Well, firstly, tariffs are a good strategic tool to use, depending upon the circumstances, but they've got to be targeted, not blanket things like the Orange Hitler's imposing. You would use it because you'd use tariffs because, say, a country like China is doing something, or better yet, Russia, right? If you had a lot of doing a lot of business with a country like Russia, and then they go and do something like, I don't know, invade Ukraine, you would impose sanctions and tariffs to do your best to cripple their economy. Because if they can't sell the goods because people in the country, in the importing country, don't buy them, that affects the country upon which the tariffs are imposed.
Well, can I just say before you go on that is an interesting analogy, because I don't know if you know, but Russia weren't tariffed.
No, I heard that. Mind you, do you know how much the United States imports from Russia each year?
No, but I guess I got a feeling you're about to tell me, mate.
It's around $3 to $4 billion.
All right, but the question there is,
in the big scheme of things, it's nothing.
But yeah, I guess the question really is, given that they've tariffed islands on which people don't exist, why would you not tariff Russia?
Well, because Putin said, "Please don't tariff me because I'm your friend." And I'll release those golden shower tapes if you do. I don't know.
Right. So you're still convinced there are those tapes, are you?
Absolutely. I'm absolutely convinced that Putin has got compromise on Trump.
Right.
And
so
they're both fascists, so
but so anyway, sorry, I interrupted you about your tariffs. I just wanted to make sure that we were clear.
Yeah.
Interesting enough that there weren't any tariffs on Russia.
Yeah. The reason they wouldn't have put tariffs on Russia, the main reason I would think, isn't the golden shower tapes. It's the fact that they import so little from Russia that it wouldn't have much of an impact on the US economy or on the Russian economy. In putting tariffs on a country like Canada, which is their biggest trading, that Canada and Mexico, their biggest trading partners, that's going to have a massive impact on the American people, not on the Canadians. It will impact the Canadians and the Mexicans, but contrary to what Trump is saying, what his mouthpiece in the press room is saying, it's not the foreign country that pays those tariffs. It's the consumer, the person who goes to buy that new car, that washing machine, the lettuce, the apples, or whatever it happens to be. The tariff is imposed on the importer at the port of entry into the country. So if
And
something comes into the United States,
I believe they import a lot of timber from
Canada.
So Wisconsin in particular, I think, is disadvantaged because they're so close to the border, and they rely on potash, or they rely on fertilizer for their crops and stuff, and they also rely on timber for the building of homes. So
And
those two areas in particular are going to be heavily affected.
Steel and aluminium for the car industry.
Yep.
Trump said we don't need their lumber because we've got plenty of lumber here. But yeah, they got lots of trees, no doubt about that. But are they the right trees for the work that they need to do? And the answer very likely is not. He said we got all the potash we need. Well, if you've got all the potash you need, why have you been for the past 100 years been importing it from Canada or anywhere else? The answer is they don't have all the potash that they need. You know, the potash is produced, but one of the sources is bird poop, right? And Canada, because of its geologic history, has got lots and lots of that stuff. Right? The United States.
Sorry, they've got lots of bird shit. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
So
There's Peru's another place like that as well. Absolute mountains.
So does someone race around scraping shit off statues or something in Canada? Do they like?
No.
What sort of bird shit are we talking about? Foul shit like shit from fowls?
You're talking about the things like the seabirds that have just dumped, over the millennia, just dumped thousands and millions of tons of the stuff, and it just slowly accumulates. And they're gone. They're not going and scraping fresh bird poop off statues.
Oh, okay. Oh, thank God. So you're talking
about out of the ground.
You're talking about something that is centuries old, in fact, or maybe more than that.
Yeah.
That has formed into some sort of utilization that is sort of material you can use in soils. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
so sorry, mate. I just had this bizarre vision of someone going around with it, trying to scrape it off.
Yeah, no, it's not like that. I mean, it would take. Just think what the price of potash would be if that's how you had to collect it.
True.
They collect it with bulldozers and earth movers and things like that.
So how do you think this is like the west of the world is responding to all of this by at the moment just standing back? Australia's just decided not to do anything, which is fine. But do you think the rest of the world is likely to say, okay, we need to find a way to retaliate? If we're China, for example, are we going to retaliate? If we're India got hit with a high 37% or something tariff. So, so are those countries going to find a way to retaliate over this, do you think?
Well, there's two ways that I think they could retaliate. One is to say, well, we're going to impose this tariff on goods that we get from the United States. Another one is to say, well, the hell with you, United States. We're going to go and trade with China. We're going to go and trade with Argentina. And Trump.
And actually, I was watching someone from, it was the president of the EU the other day, and she was really saying just that fact. That if they're we can trade with Vietnam, they've been heavily hit. as well, apparently.
90%.
So we can start trading with them. We need to reevaluate who our alliances are with because we can no longer rely on the United States because they're shit,
Yeah.
basically. And they're no longer,
Well,
the thing that interests me, I just want to say this one point, and then you can talk about it, is that Albanese also said that this isn't the way that you treat your friends.
it isn't.
So, no, it isn't.
But bear in mind, Trump doesn't have any friends. Right? He has people that are acquaintances, but does he have any real friends? No.
Well, I don't even think
Because
Melania's not even a friend. She's just someone that sleeps in a room nearby.
yeah,
You know, like
arm candy. That's
yeah,
it.
that's about right. It's just a
A
handbag.
trophy wife sort of thing.
So back to my original question: the rest of the world, and how do you think they're going to respond?
I think that some are going to put on reciprocal tariffs. Others are like what do you call it? Japan and South Korea negotiating trade deals right now with China to replace what they were sending to United States or importing from the United States. Now they're going to do it with China. So serve the United States right.
I think we're also finding out a lot about how the world works around trade, which I find fascinating. So there's this issue in in Alaska, I think it might be about lobsters. So in Alaska they have 5 lobster plants. So the people that manufacture that clean and process lobsters, and in Canada they have 45
Yeah,
lobster plants. So in order to get the massive amount of lobsters that they have processed, they have to send them to Canada, and then Canada exports a lot of that stuff to China, right? So that's an example where it goes from one country to another to be processed, and then from that country gets exported to a country across the ocean, namely China.
yeah.
And so, like where are the tariffs in all of that? Like how much is that product going to be by the time it's been processed all those times and exported from one place to another?
Well, if there's no tariffs on goods being imported from Canada by China, then the
Well, there
tariff
might
is
be because there might be reciprocal tariffs.
no. The reciprocal tariff is against the country that imposed the tariffs.
That's right.
It's the United States that's
But
imposing the
not from
tariff.
but not from Canada. You're right. Sorry, I stand
Yeah,
corrected. Yep.
yeah. Oh, think think about this. United States has got in Alaska. They got these lobster processing plants. They don't have sufficient. So they export it to Canada because they put this 25% tariff on all goods coming in from Canada. Let's say Canada does the same to them. So all these lobsters are shipped from Alaska into Canada for processing. There's a 25% tariff put on those goods. Canada processes it and sells it back to the United States. Because it's going back into the United States, there's a 25% tariff put on those goods.
Yeah.
Right, so they're getting hit twice.
So
Every time that thing moves
so
back
in
and forth,
so
a
in
tariff is
effect,
applied.
does that up in total to a 50% tariff?
Well, not 50.
It
Really,
would be
25.
50.
If you've got, let's say the thing is $100 and you apply a 25% tariff, that makes it 125.
Yeah.
If you then sell it back and there's a tariff of 25%, it's not 25% of $100, it's 25% of 125.
$125. That's right. Yeah.
Right, so you're looking at $160 or something.
Yeah.
Effectively a 60% tariff.
The point.
I
The
don't know
point
the
is.
actual number.
Well, the point is it increases exponentially every time you move
Every
through
time.
another country, doesn't
Yeah.
it?
And
So
you take something like the car manufacturing industry in the
yeah,
United
exactly.
States,
No, exactly.
right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
something's built in Detroit, but back and forth between the US and Canada or the US and Mexico, there's components that they manufacture a bit of it in somewhere in the United States, ship it down to Mexico, where they do some more work on it and sell it back. So there's a tariff going in, a tariff coming back, then it goes off again, and it comes back again. And eventually it's all put together in a car in Detroit. and sold, and the price has gone up, like 25%, 30%, something like that.
Yeah.
There was a thing the other day when, a couple of weeks ago, when he first talked about the 25% tariff on cars coming in from Canada, or steel and aluminium coming from Canada, it might have been, where MSNBC, I think it was, were talking to a Dodge dealer in the United States, and on the day before the tariffs were announced, he was selling this particular Dodge truck for $80,000. The tariffs were announced, and the price went up to $100,000. And of course, who drives Dodge trucks and things like that? The MAGAs, the people that vote for people like Trump. I mean, obviously there's Democrats drive them as well, but an awful lot of people in the red states, because they're the more rural states generally, drive those things like the Dodge truck.
Monstrosities is what I was going to call them, but that's not necessarily true. There is a post. There is a post here on Facebook from Ross Casaubon, which I think we should talk about anyway in a moment. So, and Ross, we will respond to this. I'm just going to let you know. He says it is sad that we are tied in by AUKUS, and I agree. So perhaps we could have a conversation about that at some particular point as well.
Yeah.
Because one of the things, Avery, that I found interesting about all of this is that we have a fair bit of bargaining power here. And Dutton's criticism, without any knowledge whatsoever, is that Albo could have negotiated a better deal, which is impossible because no country got off on this, including countries that didn't have people on it. So no country got away with it, so he couldn't have negotiated no matter how hard he tried and no matter how clever Albo is. But one of the issues that we could have negotiated was Pine Gap and the Five Eyes agreement, as well as AUKUS. So there's kind of three things. The other thing was rare minerals, of which we seem to have plenty. So there are a number of these areas that we could have negotiated with as well. I'm just wondering what you think about that. Do you believe that there was this opportunity to negotiate and either we missed out on it or wouldn't it have mattered?
Well, I think that if Peter Dutton had been prime minister, he'd been caught short just the same way Albanese was, because Trump was saying there's going to be tariffs, there's not going to be tariffs, there's going to be tariffs, there's not going to be tariffs. They're going to be 25%, they're going to be 10%. Nobody knew what he was doing. He doesn't know what he's doing, right? I don't think anybody could have negotiated anything. A negotiation should involve a compromise, or you'd expect it. We'll meet you. You start with something. I want this huge thing, and the person you negotiate says, "Well, I want this," and then you sort of move down and meet somewhere in the middle. Trump is a my way or the highway type of person.
Yeah, I've heard part of there's been a conversation which has actually been more about Trump has done this so that there's this baseline on which everybody can negotiate. So we find that everybody winds up, all politicians, all prime ministers, presidents, whoever they are knocking on his door, telling him what a great person he is, that they love him dearly, and they'll do anything for him, and is the greatest person that's ever governed the United States, and so on and so on. So there's this belief, I guess, that if you suck up to Trump enough, he may find a way to limit the effects of the tariffs.
Until you do something that upsets him, then he throws you under the bus.
Yeah.
Right? I would sooner trust an angry rattlesnake than him.
Well, it's kind of a rattlesnake, so let's not argue about that.
Well, no, snakes are nice. Snakes are nice. I can't find anything nice about him. I like snakes,
And the good thing about snakes is that they can shed their skin.
Yeah.
And he looks like he should be able to shed his skin, but nevertheless.
Yeah. The thing to bear in mind about Trump is that the way he looks at the world, his art of the deal is there's a winner and there's a loser, and he doesn't want to be the loser. Instead of those doing something where both sides win, it's where there's that zero sum game where both get something out of it. He wants what he wants and doesn't care what somebody, the fact that you're going to lose out. Great, that's what he wants. I want to be the winner.
Yeah. So I just wanted to go to the humorous side of this, and then I'll play a bit of Dutton's address, and then we can talk about that as we do it. But so this is wrong one. I'll go to this one. So this is Trump's tariff hit Antarctic islands inhabited by 0 humans and many penguins. So this is humorous, to say the least. On Wednesday, President Donald Trump announced the US was imposing reciprocal tariffs on I love this, reciprocal tariffs on a small collection of Antarctic islands that are not inhabited by humans as part of a global trade war aimed at asserting US dominance. The Herald and McDonald Islands, known for their populations of penguins and seabirds, can only be reached by sea. Now,
Yeah.
Avery, this means that the did they do their homework? These dudes, did they actually look at or did they just have a look at all islands, all land masses? So they didn't even look at countries, because these are Australian territories. There's two ones I'm talking about, because the other one, I'll just bring that up as well. We'll talk about them in sync. So the other one is Norfolk Island. So no explanation from White House why tiny Aussie islands tariffs nearly triple the rest of Australia's. So a tiny Australian territory has been handed a US tariff nearly triple what the rest of the country has received, as the rest of Australia was dealt a 10% tariff from Donald Trump this morning. Norfolk Island received 29%. The White House offers no explanation for the disparity. So let's I don't know. Should we sit down and try and understand any of this?
I can think of one reason why he might have imposed tariffs on Heard and McDonald Islands, and that is because they've got such a huge bird population. We go back to the poop. Because
All right.
if Australia happens to go there and dig the stuff out and sell it, right? That would be a huge source of potash. I'm just looking to see what it says on there.
You're doing your research on the run, are you? So,
I am, yeah.
Right.
I don't know whether it's whether they've got sufficient bird poop there, but we got masses of penguins. Maybe penguins poop in the ocean. I don't know. I've never watched a penguin pooping, so.
Right. I know that this conversation has taken a detrimental step in the wrong direction.
You asked why would he impose a tariff on Heard and McDonald Islands, where only penguins and other birds and mammals live, and I'm just offering a suggestion. Maybe it's a source of potash.
No, fair enough. No, fair enough. Yeah. It could well be, but I doubt it. I think the combined IQ of the penguins on that island exceeds that of the United States.
Yeah.
Just putting that out there, given that they've elected Trump.
Well, Obama's got an IQ of about 153 or something like that, and if you add Obama's IQ to Trump's IQ, it equals 153.
Right. I'm sure that will go down very well if Trump ever listens to this. We've got Timothy Holtz come on board, mate, on Facebook. And Tim says, good to see you, Tim. Thanks for coming on board, buddy. Haven't seen you for a long time. Trump is preparing his steak before he eats. He's getting ready to flick over to digital currency. I don't know if he knows what he's doing around that either, Tim, and perhaps that's a conversation for another day. But certainly at the moment, I think that's that stuff about currency. Tim probably might know is whether or not the currency in the US dollar will decline, and perhaps the currency. What do they use in China? What's their
The
currency?
yuan.
Yuan. So that is that likely might take over as the international currency. Who
That or the euro
knows?
or the euro.
Or the euro, maybe the euro.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Good point.
I
So who
think the
knows?
Aussie dollar would be a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
the you said is the US dollar likely to decline? Yes.
yeah.
It- if you look, yeah, what is it? History is prologue to the present. If you look at what's happened in the past, something like in 1927, Herbert Hoover, I think it was, imposed tariffs. About 18 months later, we had the Depression. Where the all the banks collapsed, the walls, and the US dollar plummeted.
Hmm.
In 1913, exactly the same thing happened then. Every time there's been a fear of recession or a recession, the value of the dollar decreases.
And
Right?
also Avery McKinley was the other one. So that was the 1890s or whatever it was.
Yeah, late
So
1890s.
he's the hero of Donald Trump. And apparently, every time anybody's imposed a tariff, that particular party, whoever that is, mainly the Republicans, I think,
Yeah,
gets wiped out at the next election. So
yeah,
the warning for the United States is you're about to be wiped out, buddy, the Republican
yeah.
Party, if you do this. And I just can't understand why Trump hasn't got the nous to understand or to acknowledge that what he's doing, because there must be lots of people, I imagine, within his administration who are saying, "Hold on, the history of this is not good. So why are you doing it?" And Trump's just sitting back and saying, "I don't give an F about that.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to do it regardless." You know?
Trump's doing it because, as we know from listening to Trump, he knows more about tariffs, taxation, foreign affairs. I mean, foreign affairs to him is women from Slovenia and Czech Republic and things like that.
Oh,
Um,
Avery, that's just so cruel. That is so
I know
cruel.
it is, and
Yeah.
I'm sticking with it. I'm not gonna
No,
retract it.
no, fair enough. Probably
Um,
lots of people will agree.
the he knows more about taxation law, but more about this. You pick a topic, he knows more about it than everybody else on the planet. If you asked him, about the speed of light, he knows more about that than Albert Einstein did. Right.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Yeah, it's true.
so when he,
He is an authority on absolutely everything. We understand that. But at what point, though, and this is the thing that fascinates me, is at what point is someone going to step in and say, "No, you can't do this"? Because at the moment, there were four Republicans who stood up against Trump in the Senate recently, yesterday actually, in relation to the tariffs on Canada. And so the Republicans are slowly starting to say, you know, Rand Paul was one of them, strangely enough.
yeah.
The other three were quite well, more
Well,
than
I'm
likely.
not surprised at Rand Paul doing that.
Beg pardon?
'Cause I would say I'm not surprised that Rand Paul would do that. He's a libertarian. He is
True.
all for free trade.
But you don't, I guess my point is you don't hear him talk much about
No,
standing against Trump, but he certainly has on this instance. So
yeah.
I'm assuming that over time there'll be more and more of them who will be making a stand against him,
Well,
um, and we'll have to
I
wait and
would
see.
hope so. Yeah, I would hope so. But you've basically got 220 jellyfish in the House and 54 jellyfish in the Senate.
Yeah,
Spineless.
yeah.
Uh, they don't have the courage to stand up and uh, say to Trump, "This is wrong." Look at what they did with that thing with Pete Hegseth, um, putting all that classified information on that signal chat. None of them said that was wrong. A few people privately said it. Some come out and said, um, "Oh no, it was classified. It shouldn't have been on there." And when Trump said, "No, that nothing to see here," they said, "Yeah, okay," and left it because they don't have the spine. They don't have the guts to stand up to him because he knows he'll turn. They know that he'll turn to Elon and say, "Primary that guy, will you?"
And what? And what? Oh, I had a little bit of a flash there. That was interesting. I I'd forgotten I had that one.
Yeah.
Just remember to subscribe to the Tony Tompkins Show, everybody. Yes, and I just wonder though, at what point does it have to get to before someone says like, enough's enough, we've gone too far with all of this, and that it's looking so bad that people are complaining that they can't pay their mortgage anymore. Cost of living has increased. Our inflation is increasing. We've now got a recession on our hands, all because of your policies. Or is Trump just as much likely to say, and I reckon this will be the pattern, oh, we need to wait a little bit longer. We just
Yeah.
wait another 3 years, or wait till I have my third term, and we will be able to change this, and it will be better for everybody. Everybody just needs to be calm and relaxed and cool about it.
I think the only time that the Republicans in the Congress, House and Senate, will grow a spine is the day that they put that man Trump in the ground. Right, the day that he's at the lectern and he suddenly grabs his chest and collapses and dies on the stage. Right, that is the only time they will grow a spine. Oh, I always did this. I said this about him. No, they didn't. They're chicken shits. They're all. Not one of them got the intellectual, the courage, the intellectual fortitude to stand up and say that is wrong, and to stick to it.
Actually, just on
A
this.
prime example is Ted Cruz.
Yep.
Right, you
Yep.
listen to what he was saying, or Lindsey Graham, but particularly Ted Cruz. What Trump was saying about Heidi Cruz a few years ago, and within months, Ted Cruz is sucking up to him. All right, spineless.
That is true. There's a interesting little meme going around. I don't know if it's a meme or just a suggestion or a video, whatever, but it is about the assassination attempt on Trump and how they keep putting up this little post that says, "Was this staged?" When I first, now I'm not into conspiracy theories one iota, but one has to remember that amongst every conspiracy theory, there is an element of truth, maybe, about it. So the conspiracy theory is that it was staged. Now, I've always thought that there was a bit bizarre. I'm not saying it was staged, but I am saying it is a bit bizarre that whatever it was that clipped his ear healed very, very quickly.
Yeah.
And it has, like you weren't able to see any scars or anything, even days later, once he's had that terrible white thing moved off his face. So, you could not
I think
see
it was a
any
maxi
result.
pad he was wearing.
Yeah, that's only because he doesn't know where they're supposed to go. But that's another story.
Yeah.
But yes.
I'd say it was in the right place on him.
Well, true. But I guess my point is that that there are theories going around that perhaps it was, and I guess at some stage maybe we will find out whether it was faked or not. But if it was, two people died as a result of that, which would be a pretty terrible thing to acknowledge.
Yeah.
If it was set up.
Well,
But
I don't think that was a setup in the way of that fella on that roof really shot at him, and he was there and he just knew the right time just to turn his head, so it only flicked his ear. I don't think that happened at all. But I mean, there would be Trump is stupid, but I don't think he's that stupid to risk this guy who's not, the world's greatest sniper.
yeah,
To risk the chance, all it would need, even at 150 meters or whatever, was it 150, 200 meters, something like that, distance away. Just a gust of wind could have taken it from here into here.
well, it is regrettable that there wasn't that gust of wind, but nevertheless, let's not go down that path. But I just want to come back to Ross's point. And Ross has put in here, the USA, CIA and other bodies would manipulate the upcoming election if Albo were to retaliate, threaten using Five Eyes or Pine Gap. I think that's a good point, Ross. We don't own Pine Gap. They do, I think. But they're also the ports, aren't they? Up in who owns Who do we negotiate in Darwin? Those ports with? Was that with
uh,
China?
China.
Yeah.
Pine Gap is owned by Australia, administered by Australia, but the staff, the majority of the people that work there are US citizens.
Right. But we're
I've
gathering.
been,
But
I've been to
but
Pine
the,
Gap.
oh right. Okay. The point is, and I've watched the TV show, but
Yeah,
the point is that Pine Gap is crucial in terms of information gathering, particularly information gathering from satellites that travel over China.
yeah.
So it is important that that facility be maintained, but it's only important if the United States believe that gathering intelligence is integral to their security. Because once they stop believing that, who gives a shit? You know, once they stop caring, and they clearly don't because they keep using Signal to,
Yeah,
communicate what's
and
happening around the
Gmail.
world. And yeah, so
Yeah,
so much for the notions around Hillary and her freaking.
yeah,
But
yeah.
yes,
I can't see them stopping using Pine Gap because it is so important. Um, but everything that they do in space in some way ties in eventually with it ties in. Well, not everything. An awful lot of what they do. Excuse me. An awful lot of what they do in space ties in with with work that's done at Pine Gap. So I really can't see them, even with this moron in chief. I can't see them getting rid of it. It's
yeah, there'd
it.
be even if Trump was not interested in it, I guess there are still some people within the administration who would
Yeah,
express dismay if he chose to get rid of that
yeah,
sort of facility.
yeah.
But it is. But I guess Ross's point is that it is a negotiating factor in relation to.
Big.
So we have. I guess we have some authority. We have some chips on the table if we
Well,
care to
we
use them.
could say you're paying $10 million a year to rent it from us. You know it's going to cost you 20. We could do that. I don't know what it
Yeah.
costs.
Yeah.
We could do
Yeah.
it, right?
Yeah.
The thing Ross also mentioned, I think, AUKUS,
He did.
right?
Yep.
Uh, I don't, uh, I don't entirely support AUKUS, but I don't entirely reject it either, right? Um, AUKUS was to purchase 12 nuclear-powered submarines. That is 6 more than we actually need. We've got 6 diesel electrics right now, the Collins class, and we can't put crews on those 6. So what on earth makes them think we can put crews on 12? Right?
Because apparently we will have the idea is they're being trained in the US, our submariners,
Yeah.
and my understanding is that the idea is that those people that are trained will be ready to go into the submarines when they're available. The problem with that, of course, is that they'll be close to retirement by that
Yeah.
stage, even if they're young men now.
The,
So,
the other thing that a lot of people, and I know you'll probably be one of them, criticize is buying nuclear-powered submarines. Now, there's a really good strategic reason for buying nuclear-powered submarines, and that is they leave Fremantle, they submerge, and the next time they come to the surface is when they get back to Fremantle, and they
I
can
must.
spend 3, 4, 5, 6 months underwater as long as they've got sufficient food and medication and that's all they need in there, and they can go anywhere unseen, unheard. Right? Where a diesel electric has got to surface every 30 hours or so to recharge the batteries.
Yeah.
That
Well,
puts them that,
what?
but we
Yeah,
don't
and
need 12.
I have. Yeah. Well, that's the other issue. Is do we need
And
as
the other
many
thing
as
is,
there?
well,
And why
then
can't
they're
we?
nuclear. They're nuclear powered. They don't carry nuclear weapons.
That's right. That's right. The Australian version won't carry nuclear weapons,
Yeah.
I hear. So, but why can't we hire them? Why can't we hire them from the UK? Well, like sublease them. Why
Well,
can't we
the
do that?
UK hasn't got as big a shipbuilding industry as the United States has.
No, but they do
The
produce.
company I used to work for, the company I
Yeah, I
used to
know.
work for in the UK builds submarines,
That's right.
right?
That's right.
Um,
So,
but
and you have top secret stuff, don't you, Avery, around all of that stuff, which you can't disclose to me here or to us across YouTube because it would mean that you'd be shot. So,
yeah,
so I
I
appreciate
could tell
that.
you, but I've kill you. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, well, don't go down there because this
No,
could be the end of our relationship. But I guess we could hire, we could lease them. But the problem is now this is the problem that the United States can't produce enough for their own needs, let alone produce enough for their needs and for ours either. Like Turnbull gave a really interesting press club speech the other day, and he highlighted that they make 1.1 submarine a year, and given that so many submarines are also decommissioned over time, that they'll never make enough for the United States because they're behind their manufacturing targets anyway. They'll never make enough for the United States and for us as well. So
yeah.
the billions of dollars we're giving the United States would just be wasted at the end of the day because
Well,
they will look after themselves before they decide to look after us.
the whole thing with this, with the AUKUS deal, right, is that was used to replace. I think it was called the Scorpion, which was a French submarine, and the French submarine was going to be inordinately expensive. And the reason it was going to be inordinately expensive is they required a complete redesign of the propulsion system because the current design that the French use is a nuclear powered submarine. And they said, no, we don't like nuclear power. It's got to be diesel electric. Well, if they said we'll buy 6 nuclear powered Scorpions, Scorpion class submarines, we'd be getting the first ones in a couple of years' time instead of 10 or 12 years' time, and a much cheaper cost. And we
Well,
wouldn't have to be relying on the United States of Trumpistan to supply them.
see, I reckon we should look to the Chinese. So by so by Chinese submarines, so they know what we're doing, and build a better relationship with them, so we can all look after stuff
Well,
between the China Sea and Australia, and live in peace.
I'm all for building a better relationship with people like the Chinese, yeah.
That's
But
right.
the if you do a comparison of, say, a French submarine or an American submarine with a Chinese one, right? The Chinese one, it comes in number 3,
Yeah,
right?
but I prefer
Because
to have something that comes in at number 3 than nothing at all, I guess.
oh,
You know
well,
what I mean?
so if I was asked to pick one of those 3, I would pick the French one.
But
I
how?
wouldn't go with
Oh yeah, which we did originally anyway. But then
yeah,
Morrison, kicked Macron up the arse, so that did that. But
yeah. But, and
you know,
I say when they initially placed that order for those French submarines, they should have just gone with the nuclear version. But people here say, "Oh, they hear the word nuclear and they immediately think of things like Hiroshima.
I think no.
Right?
I
They hear the
think
word
I've
nuclear.
never thought of it. Well,
Hang
other
on,
people might, but
people
I've
hear
never
that
thought of it.
people hear about the word nuclear and they think about Hiroshima. I was then going to go on and say they think about Chernobyl, they think about 3 Mile Island, and they know nothing about the history of nuclear power.
No, I'm not. I've never ever had an issue with nuclear submarines. I've had an issue with nuclear electricity plants on our land
What's
next
the,
to our houses. But let's not go down there. Let's not have that argument because I know I'll win, and I don't want that to happen to you, Avery.
oh,
So
you won't.
I'm going to be very quiet about that.
Yeah.
But what's I going to say? But I think that the issue is like, do we need submarines?
Yes.
Why?
Because a submarine is an extremely good weapon to have. Ideally, we don't need an.
What
Hang
weapons
on,
is it? Well,
you asked me a question.
yes,
Ideally,
go
we
for it.
wouldn't have a navy, army, or air force because ideally everybody would be living peacefully and just trading and stuff like that. But in the real world, we've got to defend ourselves. We're a small nation. We've got a huge coastline. We've got a small population. We need to defend it as best as we can. Submarine. We can't afford aircraft carriers, no, because we can't afford the aircraft. I mean, you're looking at like $200 million for one aircraft now to put on an aircraft carrier. The submarines can do an awful lot more for us, as long as we can rely upon people like the United States and the UK and France and
So
our other allies, right? But
I guess
we,
I guess my hold on, I guess my point is, why am I doing that up there again? I guess my point is that given some of the things you've just said, are we relatively today, right at this moment, are we, because we do not have access to all of those things and have relied on the US for some degree our security, does that mean that we're pretty much defenseless?
in a lot of ways, yes, because we're, as I said, we're a large nation area-wise, small area population-wise. We're basically living along the south or the east coast, a little bit on the south and over in the west. Right? We've got if a country like we'll use China, if they decided to invade, we could not defend ourselves. I said this to you before. We could not defend ourselves because they've got so many more people in their army, Navy, and Air Force. They've got a much bigger army, Navy, and Air Force than we've got. We could never defend ourselves if they decided seriously to invade. We would have to start learning to speak Mandarin.
Yeah, but I
We are,
guess
but
oh yeah,
as long as
this
we've got somebody like the United States,
yeah yeah.
if they weren't didn't have a traitor as a president, somebody who betrays his allies, we're relatively safe, relatively secure. But by ourselves, no, we're not.
But okay, so I guess this is my question, and this is what bugs me: is do let's say America withdrew all their planes and boats and whatever else they've got, and they left Guam, whatever, and they didn't have a presence in the Pacific. Do you think we would be at risk of being invaded by China?
I think
A country, incidentally, sorry, Avery, but a country, incidentally, who has rarely invaded any other country.
no, I was going to say I could see China's influence expanding, but not necessarily that because they'd be using an awful lot of soft diplomacy. That what do they call it? The road and rail initiative or something like that.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
I can't remember what they call it now, but that thing by
Yeah,
you that is soft diplomacy, and it's you need this reservoir building. We'll do it for you. We'll lend you the money. We'll give you the money.
yeah,
We'll do it for you.
and it's caused for China some financial difficulties because the countries aren't paying them back.
Yeah,
The point is
but
they've
the
loaned them
thing
all
is,
that money, and
you asked would I see them doing
yeah, the
anything
point,
militarily? Probably not.
yeah.
Right,
The point
but
is we're not we're not surrounded by any enemies, if you like.
no,
We have Indonesia, we have Philippines, we have Papua New Guinea. And
we
now
do have to
according,
worry about the penguins on McDonald Island, though.
I just got to say that. But apparently we've got this island full of penguins who are now
Yeah,
being tariffed. So and we've got Norfolk Island. We need to worry about them. They're all part of. They're all incestuous people anyway up there. So we need to worry about them. But I guess the point I'm making is that we're not surrounded by a country that's likely to be aggressive towards us. We're
no,
just not. And as a
no,
result of that, we are less likely. So are we building for a fear and a sense of anxiety that doesn't exist or shouldn't exist? Or are we just full of
the
future
re,
fear or something?
you're still asking about the submarines and our defense forces.
I'm asking about defence in general. I think not just the
Okay,
submarines.
we have got alliances, and I don't know if it still exists. That we've got alliances with the UK, the US, Canada, etc., New Zealand, and allies help each other. That's the idea, right? So if the US gets attacked, let's say some Islamic terrorists fly some airplanes into some buildings, and they decide we've got to sort this lot out and we need help, and they invoke Article 5 of NATO, and they call for help. We're not part of NATO in Australia, but they invoke it, and they ask us to help, and we say, yeah, we'll go as well, and we'll help you because you're our allies. The hope is that if the McDonnell Island Penguins decided to invade, that the United States would come to our assistance. That's the idea. But if we're not prepared to go and help them, if and when they need it, why would they bother to come and help us?
Yeah, no, fair comment.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we've got to finish it off now, mate. But that's been a great discussion.
Yeah.
We've had a few people come online, which has been fantastic. And just want to let people... So thanks, Avery, for that. I'll catch up with you in just a sec. So I just want to thank people for coming online and being with us and having a conversation about these matters and the things that matter to Avery and I. And just wanted to ask you to subscribe to my channel, ring the bell for further notifications, do all the right thing, because it is the Tony Tonkin Show and we want you to participate. And, and just to, if you've got any questions, you've got things that you'd like Avery and I to discuss, if they're interesting to you, then please let me know in the comments section below. In the meantime, everybody, take care, look after yourselves, and more importantly, be safe.